Ready? Okay, let's call this meeting to order. It is right now 7 p.m. on June 28th, 2023. And we'll start off with a roll call here. Council Position 1, Joe Armand.
Aye.
Position 2, David Budrus.
Present.
Position 3, Stephen Harding.
Yep.
Position 4, Chris Moritz.
Here.
And position 5, Levi Shank.
Present.
Wonderful. Everybody's here. And we have one.
Troy Crawford, Public Works.
Thank you, Troy. Rather than additions to the agenda, if you would like to be first up, you're on the deck.
Alrighty, that will work. Need to make some changes to ordinance 505. First offense is $200. Number 2, nuisance. Second offense, within 12 months of previous offense, is $250. We need to lower that down to 6 months at a time, because we have some individuals that kind of turn their nose up at us and do not want to comply. And is there any way we can find these individuals? Right now, all we can do is tow vehicles and write notices.
Didn't we already tame these down a little bit? These fines? We're supposed to?
Yeah, we brought them down in relation to, if I remember right, because courts, subsequent courts and organizations tack more onto it. I think
Right.
is what Mackey told us.
Right. So you are correct, Troy, but I'll have to go through here. I don't know if I have a copy of that, because we did like cut them in half. At least, heck, that's been so long ago. But anyways, Mr. Crawford, you
Okay.
have a lot of activity in this department and they just don't want to
Yes.
comply?
Does anybody need a digital copy of that?
I found mine right here, and it looks like across the board they were dropped 50%.
Yeah.
So versus at 100 now then?
Yeah, so that, opposed to what he handed you,
Okay.
every one of those numbers
Well,
is
this
half.
might be an old copy
So-
from,
It was a preliminary draft, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it's down at 100 for the first offense?
Correct.
everything 50% off.
But it wasn't the intention that by the time it all worked out, it was going to end up at those original amounts. We halved it because some.
Yeah, because the court's going to tack on enough to bring it back up to that.
Yeah,
So let me print this page. the
attorney
first page,
fees and court
right?
fees will be tacked onto that.
You see, that's not our problem though. That's,
It's actually getting the ticket out to the individual. We have no way of writing a ticket to them.
So my question on this is, I think the 12 months we were trying to...
It's
Do
too
you have
long.
a specific, without naming names, do you have a specific individual, or is this
No,
multiple
this is
people in town?
I think personally, 12 months, they go pay the $100 and we can't do anything for 12 months. It needs to be lowered to like 3 months, 6 months.
Okay, so the second offense fine is if they do it again within 12 months. It's not a restriction saying you could
Right, but they have.
do it every week. First offense, second offense, third. It's within.
I
Basically,
work-
after 12 months, what this is saying is that they go back to zero. And they go back to a
Right.
first offense.
But I work with a lot of these individuals that will just pay the $100 fee and then turn their nose up to us for a year. If we give them a ticket. We got no recourse on,
So what happens if you then hit them with the second offense fine?
how do we collect?
well, there's more to this ordinance that's not in here that I think would address that.
There's a copy of what the changes are. Go
Oh, here's the update. The first offense is 100, second is 125 within 12 months of the first prior offense.
So if you read up 2 points above that under paragraph A, it says each person who commits fails to maintain blah, blah, blah. A separate offense shall be deemed committed on each day that such occurs. So our hands are not tied. It's a matter of interpreting. Our hands are not tied. Your hands are not tied for a year.
Okay.
You can give them a ticket every day for the 12 months.
Okay. Where's the tickets? How do we
Or-
incur these fines on these individuals that refuse to do anything? There's money out there for the city if we have a way to issue tickets. Right now, all I can do is write a letter, send a copy of the ordinance, certified mail.
Well, that's what I think you're supposed to do first, is you're supposed to approach them, relay the situation to them, inform them what our ordinance is, the rules, and so they're aware. If they don't, I forget how many days they have. I thought maybe it used to be 15, but I think we've stretched it out to 30 days to comply. I could be wrong on that. And after that, if they don't come up with, we're trying to be, the city's being reasonable,
Right.
and they don't acquiesce or thumb their nose, I believe, oh golly, I think you have to have a law enforcement, because it's in sector, they'll go issue them a ticket. As long as you have your paper trail that they are aware of this, they've been warned. I think that there's even a section, I think Joe's gonna read it here in a second,
That's where,
that they can come in here and mitigate their circumstances, like, hey, this piece of junk here, it has a time, waiting for tires for it, or this and that, and we give them 30 days, and after that, all bets are off.
Yeah, for most things, they're 30 days.
Yeah.
For junk vehicles, they're 14 days.
right, we usually give them 15.
Okay.
But
Remember, this was intended to correct some actions with some people with as soft a gloves as we could do.
Right.
And I think you have one or two people who are, as you said, thumbing their nose at us. So,
We have no way to say, go down to City Hall and pay $100.
So when we originally had a talk from Mankey, at that time, if I remember right, he was talking about getting us tickets from a ticket book, but
That
the
costs-
equation changed with all
That
that.
changed, seems to me, it was just for the end of the year. And there was new ticket books coming out that were cost prohibitive for cities to even
Right,
think
right.
about buying any. And you had to buy 10 at a time or something at $800 a piece.
Right, that's.
And they were going through a whole change in what
Yeah.
a ticket
Yeah.
was.
So,
And our plan to write tickets kind of went
right.
out the window at that point.
So I would assume that when you are looking at the subsequent offenses, that you would repeat the same procedure you did for the first offense.
And just type in, you now owe $100.
Now you owe 125.
Okay.
Because it escalates for subsequent
Right.
offenses, right?
I-
Let me put it this way.
You owe
The
225.
question of
Yeah.
enforceability could arguably be as relevant for the first offense as for subsequent ones, and is a ongoing discussion for the council. So I think for where you're at, procedure-wise, the only procedure that you have for subsequent offenses is the same as the first one, in my opinion.
Well, in theory, just out of curiosity, those don't go away, do they? So if you were to hand them these notices over and over again, when the ticket books, in theory, finally came around, that would still be sitting on the record, would it not?
Similar to the
Leave.
discussion that we'll have later about other bills that people owe the city.
Okay.
So I can get hold of Sheriff Gantz
Okay.
and revisit that issue. I haven't talked to him about that specific issue, but that's been 6 months ago, so maybe it's a good time we
Yeah.
jog their memory and see if we can't get the sheriff's department to help us out on some of these issues.
It's
Well,
good.
and I spoke to the prosecutor, I think David did also.
Yeah, Adam.
that the county, I guess, is wanting to relook at our whole contract with the sheriff. Because ours is different than Odessa's, well, not Odessa, but other
Right.
municipalities that are using them as their police force or have different contracts, and he wants to get them uniform.
We've had some issues here in the last couple months where we wanted to have sheriff intervention, so maybe it's a good time to entertain some discussion with the sheriff again. And he's been out several times,
Right.
and I think he would be glad to come again if his schedule would allow.
For right, you go ahead and write the ticket, you go ahead and write the notice in front
On
of
the-
everything
Yeah.
and tell them you have so many days to come in here to the council or the next meeting and mitigate it, or by such and such a date, you will get these fines. And tell them
30 or 60 days to
30,
30.
yeah,
Okay.
Did you get the whole ordinance or just the one page?
because there's more to it than just this.
Yes,
yes.
he's got a whole page there, but
This is what I was just talking about.
I did not print out the rest of them. I don't know how many changes in
I got
there.
the
There's 8 pages, so
Yeah.
I'm just gonna print one out. I think it would be worth it for you to read the entirety of the document, because it does answer some of those concerns that you have.
And highlight
Not
them.
all of them, yeah. And other ones that you see are being an issue.
Right, I had to write a letter today to an individual, and what you do is, that'll be the next subject. You go ordinance 505, section 4, subsection III, VI, V is what you're in violation of. And then you make copies of the ordinance, and you send it in with the certified letter, so they know. And you tell me they have 30 days to respond.
Hey, Rusty.
I used to be on this thing,
Yeah.
so I show up once in a while and make a whole bunch of racket. So there you go. Talk to you.
Have a good night, Rusty.
Have a good one, Rusty.
And you know what? I care about this town, so do it correctly.
Will do.
So,
Just be across the street here for the golf.
Across the
so
street.
as far as the sheriff's office
This
is
is just
concerned, I think
There's a brand new one, Troy.
what we're primarily concerned with is the sheriff's office backstopping us at some point, right? Not
Yeah, absolutely.
necessarily in the, like, I guess what I'm getting at is, to us, it doesn't make a lot of difference whether it's tickets or a letter, right? What we care about is at the end of it, if they keep thumbing their nose, we can put in the work of hopefully going to the sheriff's office and say, look, here's what we did, here's all the letters, this is what they did, we've ran out of our ability, we've already put in hours of work, we're not just going to you for every little thing, we need you to backstop us on this because we've ran out of our ability to enforce this, right?
And it is in sectors, so they're the ones that are gonna write the ticket.
Do we have to have exactly the ticket that they have for the county, or can we use this as a ticket? And then if the person fails to follow through, we can take it and fold it up and send it to the court, and then they can go ahead and deal with it?
I think that would be a lawyer question.
My
understand.
understanding is there was something about the language and everything on it that it
$1
had
for
to.
tickets.
Yeah.
The cops write the tickets.
No, I think the actual language that is on that form that the officer writes out is mandated either by RCW or
Well, I think it might
county
be
requirements.
confusing. We write letters, the police department can write tickets, sheriff's department can write tickets. Right now,
We write notices of infraction.
sure, we
That's
get
what it-
notices of infraction. Right now, we do not currently have the ability to write a ticket.
Correct.
And these letters, as the one you sent out today, go in the code coordination file,
Yes.
okay? So there's a copy of all these letters,
Yes, I made 2
and there's one
copies.
on the computer too back there.
Yeah, well, I guess there's three. One on the computer, one in the city ordinance file, and one in the mail to the individual.
Because
Now,
the way we,
another issue with this is, I'm using a computer with a 2010 program that I can grow a hair quicker than Joe, waiting for this thing to load.
If that is an issue, we have the technology and the equipment to fix that pretty quickly.
It'd be great to have something down at the shop, be able to type in if we can,
So what are you using currently?
The
'Cause
one in the back.
the library's computer
Oh.
back there.
that,
The one in the back room back there.
And like I said,
Yeah.
2010.
we can do better than that.
Yes, I have a stack of them.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any questions for Public Works?
how are things going?
Another day in paradise.
I saw the cemetery. Were you up there with cutting down the trees with the guys? I saw a couple.
Yeah, we got the trees are coming down at the cemetery, and some of them, I don't know how they stood this long. The whole, you got about 2 to 3 inches on the outside that's there, and the whole rest of the inside rotted out.
Good old locust.
And they've showed us a couple more trees, but it's kind of, well, let's get this part done first.
Yeah, I think the couple more are on our agenda tonight.
Yes.
I noticed Willis is not currently underwater. Is there any update on that? Yeah, okay.
We don't say anything, maybe it won't leak today.
Yeah.
Yes. The last water leak was,
A couple weeks ago,
We
that's
have
been taken care of.
yeah.
we do
Yeah,
have an
from the
active one right
shop.
now, but I don't know what it takes to do that one.
Which one?
The one next to
The
the
one
lumber
up on
truck.
the street?
Yeah.
I'm beginning to think that's a contractor job. Because of
On the
the
state
ability
highway?
to go to Spokane and get a load of asphalt.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have a piece of equipment. There may be individuals in town that will tell you, oh, that's fine, I'll drive it to Spokane. I wouldn't sign off on anybody driving our 1-ton to Spokane. It's a great vehicle for Harrington. And if it doesn't leave this,
She's not for the open
In
road.
town.
no,
What
I
you're-
mean,
what
it's a
you're trying-
wonderful truck. It serves our needs just fine, but to
You're trying to
drive,
say you don't want to use
60
a
miles?
cold patch?
well, lights and.
Hot mix would be better, is what I think you're referring
Yeah,
to.
they wanted to
And-
go get 5,000 pounds apparently of real asphalt, which is hot prepared asphalt.
And might I suggest, if we're going that route, that there's a few other old patches
Absolutely.
that we prep them.
Yeah.
Does the city have a,
Get everything
Saw
ready
cutter?
and do it all at once.
Yes,
okay, you prep them and that
yeah.
probably, at least maybe a day ahead of time, so
Yeah.
people aren't driving over and beating down the edges, but cut them out and
More
get
of
them
that,
prepped.
yeah. Get a couple of those holes and whatever's left over, they'll have a small roller here. The state requires, that is our piece of roadway, but the state requires so much compacted 5/8, then a different kind of thing, then a different kind of thing, and there's quite a job there of preparing the road to
Right.
take the loads that it takes. More than we have the equipment to do.
Well, again, I'd like to add, we're gonna do that, but once we open that up, go to all this expense and do it right,
Yeah.
but what's to prevent it from doing it again? Which direction does that line run? Is it crossing the road or is it running with it?
It looks like it's crossing the road, but
Yeah.
no one really knows.
Because, I mean, I'm just saying, if we go to all that rigmarole, that we replace a section there, so we're not always, go to this expense.
What you're suggesting is we don't put a Band-Aid on this pipe?
Right, well,
I couldn't agree with you more.
Well,
but if you did fix just that spot, it's potentially gonna somewhere else, right, in the same vicinity. And it might happen in the middle of winter, and that'll just be a catastrophe
Yeah.
on that.
Well, you were talking about on a state highway where we got plenty of semis, you're gonna need flaggers,
Yep.
you're gonna need all sorts of stuff to direct traffic.
How was it done last time?
It was told to me that the two young men who used to work for the city dug it up and just routed people around by themselves. And I sit here enough of the time and see how many semis go by here every day. You can't have two people standing out there on
No,
that
it's not
roadway
safe.
with semis.
Joe, didn't you say that there was going to be, that you were talking with someone about redoing of that street? The whole road, 28?
23 is being, and next year is being repaved, from what we understand, by
Chip
DOT
or-
for... No, my understand it is going to be
Straight up
redone,
asphalt?
straight up redone from stem to stern, because they're already talking about, they only want to cover it up once, so anything that needs to go underneath or be put in advance
Or
gets
fixed.
done, so they're not cutting up a brand new road to-
Exactly.
to redo things.
Spokane County. Sorry.
Depending on,
Maybe we should explore
100%.
what that means, and if we have to put a patch on it right now for,
Mhm.
When did you say
When-
they're planning on doing this?
I was told 2024, so that would indicate probably this summer a job.
It would be good, I think, to check how firm that's looking, because if it is, generally I would agree with David. If that wasn't on the horizon, I would say, yeah, let's do it and get it done. But if indeed that is coming next year, I'd hate to go to the expense of trying to tear that up and do it right, than just to have next year have the state come through and tear it all up again and give us the access to it for free, essentially.
And you think they're gonna do the whole road? Where does 23 start? Other than from
28, and then St. John.
It starts down here in front of
Or
our...
Step-
So you're saying you think they're coming down Third Avenue,
That was my understanding.
all the way around?
They said from one end to the other, so...
By a lot of water line.
6 inch
Cynthia
pipe.
Cynthia brought it up because she said, if you're thinking about doing stuff, now's the time to start. So we probably need to get in touch with Cynthia and find out who at DOT that project is under, and
Cynthia Wall.
Cynthia, yeah. It's not under her purview, but she reads these various memos that come flying across.
Sure.
I don't know if the engineers over there, or the head super, not a lead tech, but anyways, the DOT in Davenport,
Joe Shimetti?
ask him.
I would think a
Okay.
year out, they should know whether it's happening next year. The budget and everything should be secured a year out.
Right.
Well, this has only started leaking in the last week here or so, but I don't think it can wait for a year. It's with the water that's running out of there now, and the only time it doesn't run, or doesn't flow, is when the sprinklers are on in Greenview Park.
Lowers the pressure enough
So-
to keep it.
Is that a main feed? Does anybody know what size the line is?
Now, I've talked to the bog one, and he said there's a line runs there and one there and one over here, and so no, he couldn't tell me if it was a 1-inch line or a 2-inch line or 3/4.
The primary, it doesn't sound like it's probably a primary line,
So
but just enough to be a pain in our backside.
I wonder, so do we have any indication that it could maybe only be feeding Grandview Park?
well, when we turn on the sprinklers,
Yeah, I know, so I guess what I'm getting at
it
is,
stops.
what if
Is that the end of the line?
If that's the end of the line, maybe if you knew, well, the problem is we don't know where it crosses, but if you knew where it crosses, maybe you could dig it up off the left side of the road and then just put a valve in it, just turn it off.
And off and on when you need the water.
So that's a Band-Aid with a handle on it,
Well,
right?
which
But that's Jimmy rig.
again, is only a good idea if
Yeah.
we do get our access to fix it right next, because if we can avoid cutting the highway, getting the contractor, if we can just dig a hole and just turn the thing off, it would be worth, I think, even the exploratory of putting in the valve, because then we'd know what's on the other side of it. If Odessa Union loses water, then we know that they're on it. But, right, and we can turn it back on and do it some other way. But, I mean, even to repair it, right? If we could put a valve right off the left side of the road, that would theoretically make it easier for us to do the repair than if we have to turn off a larger area, right?
Oh no, it's in the road.
So you can see.
Well, no, I know, but if you could turn that pipe off the left side of the road.
Yeah,
Towards-
shut the water off.
towards the building,
If it's
towards-
flowing from north to south,
Because
if we
otherwise,
could terminate it.
right now, how much
But
do
we would
to
have to locate it,
right? But
because
right now, how much do you have to shut off to turn that pipe
we
off?
don't even know where it starts.
Right, and so that's what I'm saying is that if we could find the left end of it on that road, it advantages us either way.
They
Yeah,
don't
that
shut
would
off the
be
water. What they do is
the
they put a
sidewalk
band around
side.
it and freeze
Yes,
the water.
correct.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So the one thing is, if there's a leak on the uphill side
Yeah.
in that pipe, if it's in the middle of the pipe and it's rusted through or whatever,
Right, and we got.
if it looks like this, there's a good chance it looks like that all the way across the street. So it'd be pretty silly to dig up one side of the street and not run
They just say
Something-
for a temporary shut off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
If-
yeah.
not in the pavement.
This thing needs to be fixed.
Because
Yeah.
if it's running across the street, it should go through the pavement, and then there should be an area in the gravel between the sidewalk and the asphalt where
Shoulder.
that same pipe comes off, and we could dig into that if we could locate it, and then we could turn it off and see. Because if it's just the grass of the park, I'm guessing the amount of money that this would be for a contractor job, I'm willing to let the grass die for the summer to get to next year.
AstroTurf will work.
We didn't water it much last year, there was so much shade up there. It's-
Sure. I mean, that's far cheaper than how many grand are we gonna be talking for a contractor job to do a state highway?
Probably 3, I'm guessing, just a ballpark. I'll bet that's
Only 3?
Yeah, probably a $3,000 job. They'd come and dig that up and be out of there in the day.
You're probably
When you
looking
bring 4 or 5 people,
3 I'd rather save for Willis Street though.
yeah,
Don't we need permits to dig up the highway?
at- Just raise your right hand, we'll swear you in.
They're also gonna have to charge us for traffic control.
Don't need nothing until we get
either that
caught.
or these people become traffic control.
Right. But like what you were saying about permits and stuff, that could be, I don't know, it's just a thought.
It's not, we're dealing with state, I don't think, they're not the railroad.
Well, I'm real curious to see if that line goes all the way across the street.
Well, that's what, or does it come down the middle of the street and do a turn? I mean, we don't know where it is, so probably first order of business is kind of locate that if we can.
It might go right under the tracks.
Well, yeah, those,
Yeah.
We don't want that.
I
And
think,
the sprinklers are on in the park almost every day.
Yes,
That's
did,
true.
and the cemetery in the evening.
when Odessa Union dug that, excuse me, that scale last fall or whatever,
A week ago.
well, they did, remember they ran into some sewers, they ran into some
Yes,
other
they did.
lines, did they run into any water? I can't remember.
No, they didn't run into what they snagged a power line which blew a hole in the pedestal and started the ground afire around Grandview Park.
That was last
So
Thursday.
if they didn't run into any water lines, then I think that starts to look likely that that line is just for the park.
Because, see, I think years ago there was a facility there,
Well, City Hall was there until the
70.
70s.
early 70s.
It's not inconceivable that they just ran a line from the old City Hall underneath out to there.
Problem solved if that's it, just dig down and,
Just go in the basement of his place and cut the water off?
well, I wonder if they're, talk to Mr.
That bleep button.
Talkington and see if there is a shut off or a line going that way.
Yeah, then he finds out that
They've done
he's
sillier
20
stuff
years
when they
he's
put these
been-
lines in.
I'll talk
For
to him
20 years, he's
tomorrow.
been paying for the water.
I do have one suggestion though. With all this, within the next 2 weeks, I'd make sure, because if we have to shut the water off while they're in the middle of harvest, you're gonna have a line at the door.
Yeah. Well, if we can get it located, that gives us a direction.
Right.
I will put that on my list for tomorrow morning to get that located.
Well, next time we get Scotty up here, we need to have more than a casual conversation about that.
Yeah.
It can't go through the winter. It's it's going to put water out. It's going to be a sheet of ice, and they have enough of the time getting up that hill.
Close it down, make it a sled hill.
I was gonna say, one of those chip semis going up that and a solid sheet of ice would not be fun.
Well, how long ago was that? Was it with Devin and Derek when they did that?
Year and a half, probably.
I remember seeing it probably 2019, 2020, just
Yeah.
before COVID hit, because I remember mentioning
Yeah.
it here at a council meeting, and Nathan said he was already, they were already coming up with a plan.
Well, it looks like there's a patch on it right now.
Yeah, that's been sunk.
Yeah.
Would have been 2020 or 2021.
Yeah.
Well, you have to, that's the crux of everything that's why you don't tear up new stuff, because once you tear up and dig, excavate across, you'll play heck trying to, it'll always show up. So you have to really pack the living snot out of it, and you have to,
We need to
There's
put
a lot
it
of-
down.
The state patched that hole for us last winter. They did it free of charge.
Well, the other thing is that if it only is feeding the park, I don't know where the nearest water is on that side of it, but we'd be better to not put a new line across the state highway. I think we'd be better to try and feed it from, I don't know if that building that Paul owns has water, or if Odessa Union is the nearest water, but it's easier to tear up that gravel and put something across there than
Paul's
to...
building doesn't have water.
Okay.
I know that one for a fact.
Okay. Well, but we know Odessa
That
Union
was-
does, so, I mean, better to not cross a state highway.
well, we gotta find out what the timeline is for redoing 23, and find out where the line actually goes or is. Those are two main important.
Well, we need to know about 23 anyways, because as we discussed budgeting stuff, we're gonna have to be looking at how do we buy the material necessary to dump, if they are redoing the street, how do we fund, what we need in order to put it into the ground.
Right. Those patches are $200 or $300, $400 a pop, aren't they? A piece.
I'm not sure how much the bags are.
The what?
The patches for the
It
water
depends.
lines.
For a 4-inch line,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. For a 4 and a 6-inch line,
The rubber
they're
bands, or not rubber, the steel
Band-Aids.
bands.
And
Band-Aids.
that's a small one.
Yeah.
So in some places where I've had to cut patches off to put a longer patch on, just to have enough room. Because we're cutting, 3 inches off a patch
Mm-hmm.
to make it fit in that little space. It sometimes does not work.
So if this is a 1-inch pipe, that's obviously not that kind of a patch, but we don't want to put a band patch or a union in there or
No.
any of those kind of fittings.
And I agree with what he's saying is we need to inspect
Yeah.
the line. Maybe it's time to rip it out, replace it, make Grandview Park all gravel.
Okay, I think we spent enough
Public hearing.
time on this discussion. Anything else, Troy?
No, I'm good.
Okay, let's move on. Additions to the agenda. I have 2 right off the bat. We're going to talk about COVID money and an addition to tree removal by Royal Tree Service at the cemetery. Any other additions to the agenda?
If there's time, it's not critical, but I wanted to relay what I observed at the AWC business meeting last week.
Okay. All right. Next thing on the list is to approve the agenda from June 14th, 2023.
Minutes? Minutes.
The minutes, excuse me.
Move to approve.
Second. I'll let you do that.
Who is that?
David seconded.
I second.
So we got a motion on the floor to approve the minutes and a second.
We never bid against you.
Further discussion? No? Ready for a vote, folks?
I'm good.
All in favor of accepting the minutes as stated, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? 5-0, very good. Approval of new claims. I have one thing I'd like to ask the council to give us some leeway on. We don't have a Visa card statement yet. We believe we know everything that it's been used for. But until we get that statement, we'll never know that question for sure. If this is what we think it is, I'd like you to give us the ability to go ahead and pay this, or, you know, approve it with our discretion that it's very close to what we think it is right now. In other words, if there was $20 or $30 more charges coming in that we don't know about, I think you would want to probably approve this, get it done, because by the time we get checks written again, and get this in, that could be a late charge.
Paying late fees.
Yeah.
So, and not to go too far off track, we typically have this invoice.
It's not available, either on through, not through Springbrook, through Single Point or through the bank. We don't have it yet.
Okay, is it typically mailed to us?
I can get the office thing going faster.
Okay. And then the last question is, when is it due?
I'm guessing, because the last statement came out June 2nd, I believe. That it could be like mid-July.
Okay,
Which is
thank you.
right in the time when our meeting is.
Right, and we got a holiday weekend coming up and everything's gonna be shut down, so.
Like I say, we think we have a pretty good handle on it, and we would not want you to approve something that, without knowing what it is, but,
It needs to get done.
well, it needs to get done, and I guess I'm asking you to trust us that we have a good handle, and if it's, everything looks reasonable, that we take care of it.
I'm okay.
Me too.
Do we not have online access to the Visa card as far as like, for my personal cards, I can see the charges that come in. Do we not have an ability to look at the, not a statement, but an ongoing list of transactions for the card?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Right now, it's $191 and
Yeah.
some odd cents.
25, okay.
If
So that, yeah, that figure you see
So that number
is-
came from that.
Yes,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
accurate,
Okay.
unless we need something
and
public
Okay.
works or.
I talked to the library today, they buy books at the first of the month, and we already know they're in. So unless somebody used it that we haven't kept a receipt for, we think that's accurate.
Okay, so just make sure we're clear in the vote, then we're not approving unknown charges, we're approving known charges and an expectation to settle in this matter.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm good. Move to approve.
Second. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor to approve and a second. Any further discussion?
I'm good.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same?
I abstain. My name's on there.
Okay. do you wish that brought up?
If anybody wants a clarification, I'm happy to.
I mean, that fee for Joe was, I asked him to keep track of his mileage when he went to Spokane and spent the day disassembling and hauling back our
New cubicle
desks
system.
for the new one.
Okay.
And just as if I go to somewhere on a meeting, we get
Reimburse you
paid
for
for
the
mileage,
gas.
I told him, keep track of your mileage, that you should be compensated for that. That was 100% for the city.
Yeah.
So,
And to put it in perspective, the day before, I filled my day in the city with a number of personal things, but I went to the same place and started breaking it down, and that is not included in this.
Okay.
So,
are the cubicles for the library here now also?
no, they're still there.
So,
He reached out to me, today. Don't want to go too far off. They're still there. They're still ours to have. They need to be paid for. There's 4 more small cubicles that we can use here in the library. The library would like them.
okay.
There are electrical pigtails that go with the ones for the
The one
for
we already
these, so that
have?
we can energize the panels with their own plugins. So we're not running multiple power strips connected to power strips through the room. We can actually
sense.
make the cubicles have actual outlets that work. So we have to disconnect those. There are ours to have. They also had some extra VoIP phones that they were not using, and I was unable to convince them to sell those to us.
So did I understand that we have not paid for the cubicles?
The library cubicles have not been
So I need to
paid for.
contact the library and let them know that they need to take care of that if they wish to have those. And
I have been through non-official channels, I have been told.
are you going to pick those cubicles up too?
I will, yes.
I would think, I would entertain that the city should also, when we go to take that kind of thing, that his mileage should be paid for.
If I'm in town anyway, if I can get that done on Tuesdays and Fridays when I'm there anyway, I'm not gonna, no.
I mean,
sorry.
I think we paid most of the bills for the library anyway.
I'm just saying.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that at a later date then.
Okay.
Okay. We're done with the bills at this point in time. That was a 5-0 vote, was that correct?
No,
4-0,
401.
4 and 1 abstention. Okay. Observe the prior check register. Has everybody had a chance to look over that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we need any kind of a motion to approve any of that. Any discussion on that? No? Good. So, the next 3 blocks all go together, and I made a mistake there. The executive session should be above discussion of the lease for the city hall and discussion of the Wheatland. And so I would like us to go to executive session now, and like I say, if you would put that in front of that, that would be the first thing. And then discussion of the lease and a quick discussion of Wheatland, what we found out there when we went and established our account.
So we need to set a time and state a purpose.
So we have 2 purposes there. 2 specific, very specific purposes. First one is discussion of the lease for the bank.
No, I mean in the executive session.
Yes.
Oh,
To
so
discuss the lease and
well,
and our bank information. Both financial.
Okay.
Let's do
Do we have to do them separately? Is that what
No.
you're pondering?
I can see the first one taking 45 minutes, maybe.
my I'm gonna just double check here. My concern is that I think the provision for discussing lease provisions in executive session are specifically as it pertains to the financial matters of it, not the term, not the matters of the contract as far as what our lawyer recommended were not what we would offer. Like, previously we talked about terms, amounts, percentages, things that we would come back with a counter offer. But these would be the things that our lawyer suggested here are not along those lines. So I just need to check real quick.
I'm the theme of Jeopardy. I'm the theme of Jeopardy.
Check the wording here.
It's gonna be stuck there for a while now.
I know.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
may I suggest that while Stephen is checking that we maybe talk about the setting the date for a budget meeting? It should be pretty simple to do.
Sure, I have no problem with that. So way down there, I would like us to get after this as soon as possible. Next Wednesday is the 5th, day after the holiday. First of all, we actually don't have a budget committee anymore. I'd like to see everybody here. And I would also like, so I'd like to have the whole council. I think that would be a good thing. And I would like to have our clerk here. The reason I would like to bring in the clerk for that particular meeting is her familiarity with our Springbrook program, and I'm quite sure we're going to want to have information brought up that we may not already have.
Well,
I don't object to that.
No, neither do I. She's fulfilling the treasurer role. She's a wealth of information that we need.
Yeah.
So,
She brings cookies, we're good.
So,
See, I got her to
you know,
smile.
I can see us having a couple-hour meeting there. Of course, that's an overtime issue with her, but I mean, there's no sense.
So that's next
Right.
Wednesday or something?
Next
The 5th,
Wednesday, the
yeah.
5th is the next one.
I would be good with that.
At what time?
Well, I know you have an aversion to any time before 7 p.m., so I'd be okay
No.
with 7 p.m.
Before 6 is fine. Or before 6 is where I get concerned. 6
Please.
because we have public hearings at 6.
I mean, that could start, you know, the earlier the better, actually. The sooner you get in here, the sooner you're out of here.
Well, and I think we could all agree to, since it's a workshop, we could agree to hold it to a specific time and just,
Absolutely,
yeah.
That's good.
absolutely.
I'd be fine starting
I-
at 6. That's
So would I.
fine with
I'm
me.
guessing, Donna, you're going to stay in town. Is that true? Because you work till 5:30 anyway. So you would be here
I'd say 6. I mean, it has to be done, but let's hammer it and agree to be done in, what, 90 minutes or 2 hours?
Yeah.
We could do it
6
90
p.m.
minutes, I think.
Let's
if we
do
stay-
90 minutes for now.
Can you be here
Yeah.
at 6
AM or PM?
p.m.? Okay.
So that'll be overtime rate for Donna then.
That's
right?
correct.
Good.
Yep.
So back to the executive session then?
Sure. So we agree on that for that time? Okay, next Wednesday, 6 o'clock.
RCW 42.30.110, section 1, subsection B, says that you can hold an executive session to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause a likelihood of an increased price. In my interpretation, the matters that Bingaman suggested would not affect the price. Unless you would make the argument that all changes to a contract could potentially affect the price in terms of the value for the landlord or the lessee, but I don't, as opposed to what we discussed last time, I don't think this affects price.
So you're thinking YouTube is just fine then for,
I would say that we do not have, my interpretation as a non-official, non-lawyer person is that I don't think that we have a provision to discuss it in executive session,
Okay,
unless we talk about price, in which case we are cleared to move to executive session.
I vote we go to executive session.
so you're making a motion then?
I said vote, yeah, motion.
Okay, you're entertaining a motion that we do go to executive session. Is there a second on that?
I would second that.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second
I do
to
have a question about
adjourn
money, so.
for a period of time for executive session to discuss the acquisition of the new bank building. Further discussion? All in favor of going to executive session signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same?
No.
Okay,
3-1 right now.
I apologize. I'm an I. So 4.
4, okay.
you're a
I'm okay with going into
executive session?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. I would think 45 minutes. Does that sound reasonable to?
I,
Make it 20 and we can always extend.
yeah, 30.
So I did not bring
30
my
split the
machine.
difference.
Does anybody have a physical copy of David Bingaman's?
I do
Let's do
not.
one in your.
I've got,
I don't have
I've
it.
got pieces before I
So,
ran out of
Do
ink.
we need a copy of his, since you guys have all got your iPads? I did
Yeah,
not bring
is that
mine
what
with-
you, Mr. Mayor, is that what you sent?
Yes, I
Okay.
did send that.
I don't have it, I have it on the
hard
gizmo, but not on paper.
Is that what you're making right now?
So it's like
I can make a
it's like
copy.
3 pages. Is somebody making a copy?
I can make a copy.
I don't know what that was.
That
It
was something different.
How many copies do we need?
None for me, thanks.
2.
This is,
I would like
Wow.
one, a full one.
That's something different, Jess.
oh, I was gonna say,
Start, which is
you mean
whenever you-
this is like a phone now, it's listening to you and praying what you're talking about? That's,
All right,
Thank you.
so we're good as soon as you announce start and end time.
okay, it is
You're running that off now, Joe.
7:55,
2.
7:52 it is. So why don't we leave it 7:50? Boy, that clock is off just a hair, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we can't leave it 7:50.
7:55. Let's wait a few minutes and,
Joe's still got to print that anyway.
yeah, Joe's.
So we can just declare it from 7:55 to 8:25.
Sounds good for the bank. And will our discussion of for the bank building, will our discussion of the bank fall under the rules and RCWs?
That was why I voted no.
Regarding Wheatland, you mean?
No, regarding the US Bank building.
In the lease.
Not regarding Wheatland.
Oh, well, we didn't talk about Wheatland.
Yes, well, I
He
did.
brought it up.
He brought it
Okay,
up
I
for
was-
the executive session as well.
The two subjects were the bank building and
Okay.
Wheatland Bank.
So my assertion was that I don't believe that the US Bank building qualifies for discussion under executive session.
Okay.
The discussion for Wheatland Bank is, what is the concern with the nature of the sensitivity in discussing Wheatland Bank in executive session?
We're just going to bring you up to date on all the information that we found out opening the account. Wow.
I would not think that qualifies for executive session either. Unless it would pertain to things that are sensitive as far as like account numbers or
There's a couple copies there, Jess.
Is there?
3.
It's 7:54. And 7:55. Troy, you're gonna have to stay here and hum, sing into the mic while we're
For
gone.
the record, I'll say I do not believe either subject qualifies. All right, half an hour. City Council extends executive session for 15 more minutes, starting at 8:27 and finishing at 8:42.
Okay, we're back going here again. Next thing on the
Draft
agenda
three.
is the resolution concerning the appointment process to replace a vacant council position.
Move to adopt.
Second.
So we got a motion on the floor to adopt that resolution. And a second. Any further discussion?
This question, which one I'm looking at here, the one that,
It says resolution 2023 XXX up there, David.
okay,
Well, both are the ones that are.
Do you want to look at it?
It should say draft 3 dot. This guy right here.
The
this
section that talks about
Draft 3 dot.
the process
Yeah. Okay.
starts with all all applicants will be nominated in the new draft.
Well, I just look at the very first resolution of City Council Harrington outlining the procedure for appointing. Is that the
Outlining
one?
the procedure for appointing persons to a vacated council
Okay.
position.
Okay,
Yeah, and you had sent me that
right,
verbiage, and I pretty much just put that in.
okay.
I was
I-
going
I've-
to cut and paste it, but unfortunately the systems didn't like each other, so I will have to retype it.
Yeah,
And then the other input was, instead of having a call for nominations, was that if somebody applied, they were a nominee.
And then
Just-
under G2, have one vote, I think, right? Can we add more?
Yeah.
than that?
Yes, I had.
Yeah.
I just clarified. It's in there a couple of places, but it just clarifies that a council member has one vote amongst all of the nominees.
Right.
Looks right to me.
did we spell out or put in there the minimum qualifications somewhere? Maybe I thought I read
I
one.
think in the beginning,
The vote here, or the, some, one of them.
it's under authority,
Okay,
but it refers to the RCW. The remaining members of the council are vested with responsibility for appointing a qualified person to fill a vacant council position. It doesn't clarify what qualified person is, because pretty much
Changes.
it could change. I mean, it's been pretty steady, but in Harrington, I believe it's just you have to be a registered voter and you have to be a resident for 1 year.
right.
But what happens if they change it?
You have to be at least 18 years old, that starts.
Well, you have to be that to register to vote to begin with.
Right, or no,
So-
was it correct? I was just wondering if there's a need to put any of that in here.
I mean, it's not inconceivable that somebody who's 18 years old in 4 days, and they're the only candidate, and they're registered to vote now, and they've been a resident, they hypothetically could,
I can serve in the House,
right? So,
federal House.
I'm good.
Yeah, it looks good so far, Joe. I mean, that was my only really concern. It's like going forward, we know what we're talking about. We've had to deal with it quite a bit, but,
Hold your mouth.
well, no, I mean, you
You're in
know,
bad time.
last four years. Well, actually, go back further. You're all right, Chris. Because some people will say qualified. Oh, they're warm and breathing. They're qualified, you know. Or they don't have to have a bachelor, degree and all that. So it's just strictly the qualifications of holding that office here.
right, well, I've seen me do it, call or send our elections board person at the county,
Mm-hmm.
is this person eligible to do this role?
Mm-hmm.
Just a yes or no, and, got confirmation that they are. So,
Okay.
They walk and they breathe.
a little more
They
than that.
let me on.
They couldn't run fast enough. They were
Well,
shanghaied.
That was a long time ago.
Was.
Been around
It
a-
really
You've
was.
been around a while.
Too long.
You're a grizzled veteran by now.
Grizzled, yes.
Because I think a lot, some of them, just for history, I mean, if they showed up to the council meeting, they said, hey, do you want to be on council? Okay. I'm good with it.
We good?
Yes, sir.
Well, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor of passing this motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, everybody.
You
Yes.
bet. Yeah, we needed something.
Next thing on the agenda was further discussion on risk management for a second set of eyes. That got tabled last time. It was talked about and then left, and that was back in, let's see here.
2 meetings ago, I think.
That was back on May 24th. So I don't know if anybody thinks there's anything that needs to be done on that at the moment. Okay.
Let me speak to it, because I was kind of the one that brought it up, and trying to find my... Okay, this is out of the AWC's required standards and deductibles. So this is a broad sweeping overall thing that we as a city probably need to get in compliance with. One is all member employees that handle and oversee the handling of public funds shall participate on an annual basis of an RMSA approved training regarding internal control systems to prevent or reduce fraud. These are requirements from our insurance and risk management company. And if they're presented a claim and we don't have proof that these requirements have been done, we are subject to, at best case, a higher deductible, at worst case, a denial of a claim. So that's one. Two is, and I'm summarizing, but the city shall adopt and enforce a policy outlining the separation of financial duties to ensure that one person does not have the sole responsibility of receiving payments, making purchases, reconciling cash receipts, and overseeing the process. We're basically saying no one person should be the sole person handling the coffers. We need to have a second person or persons, and it goes in, I've read more into this. Literally, there's an expectation that there are mandatory reconciliations at times and unscheduled. They're expecting us to have basically spot checks at times, unscheduled, not anticipated.
They're asking quite a bit, honestly. I mean, sorry if you're not. Are you done, or?
No. I mean, it's open for conversation. It's just
Because that was part of the reason why there was such push on Bunny, or the clerk, and the treasurer, those positions, or second set of eyes there. We currently we have 3 sets with the mayor.
So when you say a second set of eyes, there's something in that precludes Cynthia being that second set.
well, it does say this. If the member, as in the city, has only one employee available to these duties, outsourcing should be used. So
But that
Is
would
it-
not be the case.
that would not be the case. But here's what I'm thinking long term. We can't always say that we're going to have a clerk number 2.
Correct.
So,
How about
if it's the clerk and the mayor, that's I guess that's fine. What we have to have is
Oops,
a
sorry.
policy and procedure written down that outlines that. And with a town this small, you know, and no disrespect to anybody, but with, you know, nepotism just being a thing when you have a small population to pull from, if Cynthia happened to be the clerk, that would be massively inappropriate to have the mayor and
Being
the
the
clerk
second set of eyes.
being in the same household.
Well, you know, I agree to a degree, but also you got to understand, where I sit, they're dealing with a lot bigger organizations and multiple. I would say that when's the last time the city of Harrington's ran into a case where we had a claim? And to some degree, it's fear mongering. I'm not talking down on it completely, but when we have this many people, and if you wanted to hire, I mean, the city can't afford a lot of people in here. And we already have Leffel, Otis, and Warwick doing stuff. Would that possibly, if we had to go that far, be the second set of, they're doing our books, or I mean our payroll?
Well, and I agree. I'm trying to thread the water where we
Right,
do
right.
not incur more cost.
Right.
But I will tell you, okay, so yes, I come from a bigger town and I've seen bigger things. It's the kind of crimes we're talking about are not, gee, somebody just suddenly wrote a check to themselves for $100,000 or to whatever. That's not how these things happen. What you find is you look at theirs, it starts off small. It's a, like you said, it's a $20 bill that slides into somebody's pocket, and then later on it's a $123 check to pay Visa, and it doesn't clarify that it's their personal Visa getting paid and not one, and it accumulates over time. And when nobody's cross-checking things, they're not catching these little errors, and then suddenly, and it happened up in Davenport, and I believe it was to the tune over a number of years, but it was to the tune of $60,000-$70,000.
Was it Davenport or Reardon? Like,
I think both of them have had
issues.
similar issues, and it's not, like I said, it's not suddenly somebody's buying themselves a new car out of the city coffers. It's the baby steps that get there that accumulate, and they know it. And that's why they're just saying, hey, you need to have a second set of eyes.
Doesn't our reconciliation and our computers do anything for us in that department? I don't know. I just one would
It
think.
should, but as we've discovered, there are ways to
manipulate that.
manipulate and make adjustments and tweak things in such a way that it doesn't really catch anybody's attention.
So basically, you'd have to have honestly, the way, if they're that slick, you'd almost need an accountant looking at this.
Well, one that would also know bars codes, right?
The point behind this really boils down to this. For RMSA, we're supposed to do this. So that's a thing right there. Two, it's, at least in the world of insurance, it's common sense. I've had claims for employee dishonesty that were $25,000, $30,000. And for a small company, it's not the end of it, but it's devastating.
We have a court system that deals with that.
Yeah, but when the money's gone, it's gone. So I caught one of my own guys. He was stealing insurance premiums. And it was a long deal, and had he not been on holiday, and I got a couple of weird phone calls and said, well, that doesn't make sense, and I started looking into it, he'd still be doing it. And he went to jail for second degree theft, but at the end of the day, the 10 grand that he secured came out of our pocket because we had to make it right with our clients.
So it sounds like maybe there's a couple steps to this. If the immediate requirement is fulfilled by clerk 2, then I think, especially as we're trying to get all of our books straight and everything, I would guess they're already doing something pretty similar to that now, and if not, that would probably be a good thing, at least during this stage. To your point about not always having a clerk 2, I see that as a concern as well. For myself, I would like there to be a session where we are shown what is the process that is considered sufficient for this.
Okay.
And so that we can actually see exactly, like, because we've seen the reconciliation statements, I saw those sent out. It's a format I haven't seen before, and while I get the concept of balancing a checkbook, I'm just wanting to know specifically what would be all the steps that would be considered done for that particular document, so I can understand what exactly that commitment is.
How would you catch a
Right.
fraud?
Because I do see David's point, or at least my paraphrasing of his point, that I'm not sure that all forms of fraud that even the council would be well positioned to be able to catch, considering the way things can be misclassified, and to what you were kind of just speaking there as far as, like, I get your point, but I'm not sure that we're informed enough on a day-to-day basis to even necessarily catch that. But I personally am willing to serve as a part of those set of eyes, depending on how much work it takes to do the reconciliation. I think it might not be a bad task for the council to largely be a part of as a whole, just because of the awareness that it brings for us in terms of the budget. But all of that would be secondary to the fact that it sounds like, for now, unless I'm missing something, we do have the personnel to fulfill it. I guess the only question would be, is there a concern with doing that, in terms of, if it's not being done now, do we have the bandwidth in order to do it? Or is that only fulfilling the request partially, or in a kind of with an asterisk? So.
Yeah. No, and I want to clarify everything you just said, and David, it's all, we're all on the same page. I also want to say there is nothing that is happening in our world right now that is of any concern. I'm trying to think of what happens with a rookie clerk and a rookie council 10 years from now. You know, what's going to guide them? So, again, I'm trying to look down the future. There's nothing that is happening. I think we're better off now than we have been about understanding the finances and understanding where the money's going to. And now we're beginning to understand where the money's coming from. So we're on the right path of better understanding the finances in the city, and I would like to keep it going that way. I just want to be in compliance. And, you know, we all have the capacity to make a mistake. So if Donna had not been watching what she was doing, the city wrote a check to the USDA because we got a bill. Unbeknownst to us, USDA took the money because they had the right paperwork. If she hadn't been on top of that, they would have gotten double paid. Not that the money was gone, just there was no need for it at that time. And since she's pushed buttons and the money's been put back in our account, the overage. So it's those little things.
But you need somebody on a day-to-day internally working here, in my opinion, to be up to speed, know what's going on. And when it just boils down to this, you're either honest or you're a crook, one of the two. I mean, because you have the best controls, and a crook's, by definition, is going to do it anyways. You know.
Exactly, and they're going to know how to manipulate things. It's just.
So is there a concern, this is a question for the mayor and the clerk, is there a concern with clerk 2 fulfilling the reconciliation duties right now? Is that already happening, or would that be an onerous ask with the current bandwidth restrictions to have that be done?
I'll let you answer that.
I believe that that's already in place, and that one of us does the reconciliation while the other one watches. a report that's produced, 2 of them. And it goes to the mayor, and he has another set of eyes and checks the amounts. And then there's another one that has all the specific deposits. And so we can cross-check that when it comes back. And so we do that on a normal basis. We are aware of whoever's doing the reconciliation, the other person is filling out the deposit slip and checking. And that happens every day.
Cool. So from a compliance point of view, what I'm hearing is we're actually in compliance.
It sounds that way, but I would be curious, at least from their perspective, because I saw the reconciliation report. I read through it multiple times, especially as I was unfamiliar with that format, and nothing stood out to me to be a problem. But I didn't pull out a calculator and check math or do anything else. So when I hear that someone needs to check reconciliation, I'd like someone to explain to me what is it just a matter of nothing looked bad on there, in which case I was a part of checking reconciliation for this past week. But if there's a specific process of, no, we need to match up above and below, do all the math, make sure it all calculates out. If there's some requirements to exactly what fulfills that verification, I'd like to be aware of what that process is, to the point of if we ever need to take that on, if there's no longer a clerk to help fulfill those duties.
Is it a computer that will do that, or is it a process, an input process we're looking at?
Well, that's why I hope we're not doing
Yeah.
the math, because as a programmer, I'm hoping that we're trusting that our application can do the math for us.
Mhm.
You know? I understand if it's like, Springbrook will put in whatever bill, right or wrong, you tell it to put in. So I understand the set of eyes to say this makes sense, this doesn't. But I'm hoping that this reconciliation is not asking us to actually get into the math of it, because that seems silly considering the amount of money we pay Springbrook on an annual basis.
Correct. Okay, well, I'm satisfied. Thanks, Joe.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay. I would like to move on to additions to the agenda at this point. First thing on my list is COVID money. It's been brought to my attention, and I don't know this for a fact. I am totally swamped daily, so I haven't had a chance to look at this, that at the end of the year, we either have spent it or turn it back in. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm hearing it. So I need somebody to look into that thing. We've only spent COVID money on one thing. There's some of these requirements that say if you've spent it, you need to account for it, and we haven't spent it other than one time. So I think we've probably skirted through some of this. The part I'm not 100% sure of is whether that money has to be returned or accounted for, or exactly what they're saying by the end of this year. So that's something we need to keep aware of what's going on there.
Either way, we shouldn't keep kicking that down the road.
No,
Weren't we gonna buy some meters with that?
but yes, water meters?
Yes, I should.
The one thing I can tell you about water meters is, I won't say you can't, but our system needs to be replaced from the bottom to the top. And to replace a piece in the middle, the water meter,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many water meters you could replace without destroying many other things in the process.
I totally concur, Mr. Mayor, but buying them and installing them are two different things.
That's true.
I
Yeah.
think that was our premises that we were kind of looking at, is getting them,
Yeah.
We can shelve them until.
yeah,
Yep.
and replace as needed or appropriate. But then we got on this we went down another rabbit hole with the stuff,
The
so,
reporting and
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt
So
you.
that's, yeah, we just need to figure out, get a committee together, find out exactly what we can do with that money. When we first got it, the book was not out that said what you could do with the money.
Mm-hmm.
So
No one was going to play with it.
it's
until
something we
figured
can't just keep pushing away
I
for
know you
months
can use
here.
it for infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I will say this, we I've touched on the subject a little bit in these Wednesday water system meetings. And it was said, yeah, that's going to be part of the water system plan. Now, our water system plan is not coming to us as quickly as it should be. So I guess what I'm saying is, yes, we know we need water meters. We may need other stuff too. I think we need to find out, like Jess just said, when is this drop dead date for these funds? And then not just water meters, but what are the kinds of things that this money can be spent on? And
It's infrastructure.
yeah, and it's important to me that what we spend it on doesn't necessarily incur future costs. That's one of the things. Spokane, I think, got $10 million, the same category, and it was really important to them. And I think they're right on game where it's nothing that they have to continuously maintain and suddenly have this added expense.
They build a bunch of
Annual.
houses.
So that being said,
There's probably equipment we could use for our city here to bail us out of a lot of the problems we have. And I'm not sure if we can spend that on capital equipment.
I don't think so.
I don't
But
think
we got a
can-
well pump that's,
That's infrastructure.
Yeah,
yeah,
so,
How much were we quoted to, what was the price tag on that?
it was like
70 or 80.
$75,000 or something for the well. So there's several things,
That's
but I
pretty
guess the
close.
first thing we gotta do is find out what can we spend it on.
okay. So
It's in
who
the-
wants to find out our drop dead date? I guess is the big question. And there's
that would be a
two
phone
things.
call, and I don't know.
EDC would know, right? We, through the early parts when it was
Distributed,
Margie Hall,
yeah.
we were calling Margie to tell us what we could and couldn't do with our COVID money. And that historically was our contact of go, no go on COVID.
I was with her
funds.
today, she's working with fiber optic at the moment.
Right, no, but there's a different
Somebody's-
EDC director now we could contact.
Yeah,
So that's going to be one. So who's going to contact him? Because I just heard the mayor saying he's swamped. And then the second thing is that's the what. It's the when. I'll take on one of them.
I'm beyond swamped. I'm buried.
I'm not, I mean, I would need time to think about it, but to me, I don't actually know if either of those questions are relevant in that David's call out of that pump sounds really, probably pretty appropriate, I think. I mean, I'm not making the call here and now, but if we could find an additional 10 grand, I mean, infrastructure is a blessed category. So to me, as much as anyone seems to know what you can do with COVID funds, and we could see if someone could specifically bless this for us again, but it should very well fall into that. And if we decide that's what it is, we can just pull the trigger now, and what does it matter when it runs out? We can just do it. Because I think about what are the biggest vulnerabilities. I mean, you got two categories, right? What can you spend on that would make money? Meters do that, in that theoretically, especially in the summertime when we're reading them, we could know that there's more gallons going through and we could get paid more. So that is something we could spend it on that would make us money. The other side of the equation is what could we spend it on that would be defensive against something that could go out? Well, a lot of those things, like our water tower, are so big that the 60 grand from COVID money doesn't really help us any because we can't make up the difference anyways.
That's about a third of our
Yeah,
last bid.
that thing.
Right.
Pays for a
needs
paint
fence
job.
around it. We need, I mean, I don't know if you can spend it on infrastructure or not. A month ago here, we had sewer backed up in a house. We
Yeah.
need to put a backflow valve in. That's on us. That could be a $5,000-6,000 job.
Mhm. Well, point being is that I'm not as sure. I think we should get it spent in the next number of months, regardless of whether it carries over year to year. To me, that question is not highly pertinent. But that's just my opinion.
Okay.
We're already 2
So
years in.
I'm
So
raising
we
the
just need to
flag
clarify.
with half the year gone. I believe we've got 6 months. But that 6 months will be gone in a heartbeat here.
Well, and the other thing is, what I think my understanding is that part of the
I
negotiations between Biden and Congress was that they were going to reclaim unused COVID funds.
Yes.
Actual
Right, so
Social Security is right.
There's just a whole number of
Their
reasons
guide.
I don't
Mhm.
really want to keep kicking this can down the road, because I think the more
Yeah.
we do this, the more we're going to find it's gone.
What was it for? Sorry.
So,
Necessary investments in water,
Okay.
sewer, broadband infrastructure.
So,
That's
I
where
will
we're
bring
at
that
right
up
there.
again next meeting too.
I know for a fact it's.
I think I'm
You
going to
can.
see what we
Yeah,
can
I'll
spend
show
it
that to
on
Joe at the end of the
officially.
meeting.
Pardon
Yes.
me?
I will figure out how to find out what we can spend it on officially.
Okay, thank you,
With,
Joe.
with a pump number 1 in mind.
or I could be a part of that, or I could do that for you if you'd like. I think Rob Kaufman had put a lot of work in on behalf of the county. He at least got a lot of contacts. He might not be able to answer the question himself, but he could give us the names of people who could, because I remember being in commissioner meetings where they said they had to really put the screws to people to figure that out, and they did. So maybe that was more for county level stuff, but those same people would hopefully be able to give us a definitive answer.
It's the same money, so,
Yeah.
okay. Why don't you and I talk offline and,
Okay.
okay.
I'd like to bring
Doesn't
up
go
another
into
subject here.
detail
Royal
on it.
Tree is starting on phase 1, and that was, I believe, 15 trees they're removing. That was one we approved last year. It's this estimate 3006 for 24,000. They're in the process of taking those trees down now. If you've been by the cemetery, you'll see what's going on. They have found 2 more trees, one of them hanging over our old shed, which is in the same shape as this, and he's given me a quote here to add 2 more trees. I told him I just can't do that with a whim. I would have to bring it by the council. The original quote that we okayed last year was for $24,500. He wants another $1,890 or $1,900 to take out 2 more trees. The 2 trees that he's talking about are on the far east side of the cemetery. So they're not hanging over, well, one of them's hanging over our old building. And if that limb were to fall, which it could happen, I guess that will solve that problem for us. Which might be a good thing.
What kind of tree is it, Jess? Do you know?
The same thing that they've been taken down,
Okay.
and those are,
A locust or
those
hawthorn?
locust trees.
Black
Yeah,
locust.
black
And if you
locust.
get a chance, you need to swing by the cemetery and take a look. These things are totally rotted out in the center and split down the middle. So they're just a little potato chip of a tree left that's holding these things up. So it looks like we've made it without any damage. If one of those were to go down on all the headstones, boy, it could be a serious problem. Or somebody, which I wouldn't think they'd go down unless it was in a windstorm. But
Are we convinced that this constitutes the end of special tree maintenance up there?
well, I think this is our first round. And at this point, then we need to start looking at some other things. This has been, I don't know how many years that's been, 60, 70 years?
Well, right, but I'm saying, like, have they, reviewed all the trees in the cemetery? And
No.
they're-
We picked out the ones that we all found that were pretty bad shape. And when we had all of the people come in and look, of course, they found other ones, the
Mhm.
3 people that we had give us quotes.
Yeah, it sounds like these trees are, I'm reading Leonard Woolsey's estimate here.
I've got pictures of them all here,
Well,
if
he's-
anybody would like to see them.
He's got the
There's
pictures.
the original quote, the original estimate, and it shows each one of those trees, and those are the ones they're removing now. There's 2 more trees this is one of the ones that he's wanting to add to the list. It is actually, that limb hangs right over the top.
He wants to get rid of the whole tree or just the limb?
The tree, they're, neither one of them are huge trees, but
Okay.
I mean, you can see how bad off it is just even in the picture.
Well, honestly, they're not really they look that way. They're not. They're not
They're
a
not
beautiful.
They
tree.
always look terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one actually looks
I'm-
better.
so, just to tell you, here's a butt of a tree here. You had two trees, and the whole thing, well, it was two different limbs, cracked in the middle, and the whole center of these things are gone.
That's quite common for that
Yeah.
species.
Yeah.
Species
With
of
that
tree.
type of tree.
Yes.
I guess it is.
So
The problem they've got is they're at the end of their life cycle.
They are. These trees that they planted these all over Spokane during Expo 74. They filled the town with them because they're quick growing and they fill in quickly and all the rest of it, and they got the same problem. They're at the end of
biggest
life.
concern I had
No,
from day
they're
one,
hardy. They're not much
those things
water.
are this
Right.
big around when they're 60 feet in the
They
air.
grow fast, they don't
They're
require
not
much water,
really
and they can
limbs,
stand nasty
the
weather.
trees grow monstrous. All the way up, they're huge. If they ever come down in one piece,
Oh, sorry.
not being taken down, we're gonna have a real damage. So
fine.
I don't know that this is a real crisis issue. Like I say, the two that he's talking about adding would cost us another $1,800 to the 24. If one of them fell, it's gonna take out the old white shed.
So
We insure the white shed and have it fall.
Say that
We
again?
heavily insure the white shed.
I don't know that you could insure that unless it was an antique you were trying to insure. It's pretty well.
Put the fire truck in there.
Yeah, there you go.
So I told him, no, I could not give him authority to take out these other two trees without talking to the group about them.
the difference in my mind between those two and the ones other is, according to those pictures, the other ones were like right by headstones or in the middle of the cemetery. Those ones are right on the edge.
Yep.
And I would be curious to see what would happen if a person, once the field was cut, could hook a chain to a tractor and just pull them to the outside and see if they just pop over. Because I understand why we needed to pay up to carefully take down a tree that was right by headstones and was in the middle of everything. But if we can just make the tree fall over to the outside.
The rest of them, you can put some tension on it and put a V-notch in it and they'd come right down.
Yeah, they pulled one of them with his four-wheel drive truck. Wow, a big Ford, one-ton four-door, good-sized truck. But
Is his bumper still laying there?
well, it's a pretty stout vehicle. Everything about it was meant for service. So I'm not all that concerned, but I wanted to bring it up. They're up there working at the present time. The second part of that question was, I think we can probably say just leave these at the present time. If it takes out our 100-year-old shed, not that concerned about it. I think that would solve a problem for us in some ways.
I think I concur with you,
That would
Mr.
remove the
Mayor.
can from the center of the floor and we would no longer be kicking it around. The second thing is, I was up there this afternoon and I asked them to pile up all the wood as much flat in a level ground area, no stacks. So it would be nice to get this out to the public that there's free wood for available at our cemetery. They're not gonna buzz it all up in little links for you, so it's not like you can tell them what size stove and they're gonna bust this stuff up. It's laying there, it's down, it'll be in a one stack pile. Tell everybody, put it on Facebook, whatever,
I'll go up and do that tomorrow.
that we can get that out.
Load it up and haul it away.
Pick it up or Facebook?
No, I'll put it on Facebook.
Well, you gotta clarify.
And
Steve.
hopefully, also, that was
I gotta
one
keep
reason
my
we cut
termites
about
fed.
$10,000 off this bill by having them leave the wood up there.
Okay, oh wow.
Yeah, when you think about hauling off, you go look at some of these trees, there's a lot of wood there.
Price of diesel.
Yeah.
You know that we
Yeah.
don't have a burn pile.
We don't have, yeah, and there was a lot.
And you have to waste all the
It
time with your
doesn't
employees
burn.
loading it up.
You don't have the
Because
school
that black
serpentine
ash does not
anymore,
burn
and,
very well at all.
and if Lions Club doesn't use it in their
Joe,
barbecue pit.
AWC business meeting.
It's 9. I'll make it very brief. I went to the business meeting. Part of that was they elected new officers. The new president of AWC is a Spokane council person. And I had her name in front of me and I forgot it. But anyway, we've got more local representation with AWC. The state of the association is in a good shape. They are they're pushing an agenda, some areas that I don't personally agree with, but they want all the cities to be part of taking training about diversity, equity, inclusion, and they added a B for belonging.
For balloon?
Belonging.
Belonging. Not belonging.
But I will say this. Okay, Betsy Wilkerson is a council member in Spokane. She's the new president of AWC. I wasn't aware of this, but this is one of the few states where they have an association like this, where all 281 cities and towns in the state of Washington are associated with this organization. So from a lobby point of view, they're pretty powerful. So that's a good thing for us. I think the most important thing for Harrington is that they are a wealth of information on city management, issues that are approaching council people in different small communities through the area. It doesn't hurt to go through their webpage and look at their different just things that you can do, webinars and what have you within them, and just pick up a glean of information in 5 minutes. So that would be my recommendation for myself and the council, is to learn about city management from other people that are doing it already. So that's kind of what I had with it. There were people there had been at this conference for 3 days. No. I'm glad I was there for 2 hours. That was enough for me. So that was it.
Okay, thanks, Joe. I'm gonna only get one item in here, and I think it's important. We've been sending out letters. We sent out about 30 of these. We got what I consider a pretty good response. There's been 8 or 10 of them that have been taken off the list. There is 9 more names on this list that I want to send the next letter out to. It was sent to you guys, that says, if you don't come in and talk to us, and these are people who were on the first list, I'm not going to give you their names. They're on the list still. They've never come in and talked to us. Some of them have not paid the city in 2 years. Some of them have paid one payment a year, and that's it. We're talking about an amount here with these 9 people of $17,600 that they owe the city. I think it's time that we challenge them. I don't know if you read the letter I sent you. And we tell them, if you don't come in 30 days and talk to us,
Water's
it's
off.
been 2 years, we're gonna turn your water off. We are already paying their garbage bills, paying for the cans, we're paying for those through Sunshine, we're paying the dumping fees, we're paying for their water, we're paying their bills for them, and there's close to $20,000 in these 9 names right here. Some of them you might be surprised, and they are who they are. But I don't think we can, as a group who are all paying the bills, afford to.
It's not our job.
No. So, I was hoping to get your buy-in on sending this letter out. Doesn't take a boat or anything, but,
Please do.
okay?
Yeah, I think we had, in a sense, already agreed that we were gonna give until July 1st before we
Yeah.
kind of took the gloves off.
Yeah,
So-
in July, and we've done that. And like I said, we've had great response. We've had people that have come in and regularly pay money who don't have it.
Well,
And they just give us certain amounts, you know, that's all we want.
to Troy's point, if we started doing that, it might bring some of the other stuff in line as well.
Yeah, yeah. Some of this, you're gonna hear about the bad guy who did it because they're gonna say, this guy's been here for 3 generations. That's wonderful, folks.
Your generations don't pay the bills.
Yes, so, okay, I'm gonna move forward with that then. We're gonna send that
Sounds
out with
good.
the next round of
Just-
bills. And it's not a personal thing at all.
No. But I had a logistical question. How, I mean, are we talking about pulling the water meter and capping the line?
No? Oh, no, just turn it off. And we put a lock on it.
Not,
For the ones that do off.
I was gonna say, not
Well-
all the meters
Well, there's a
have
good share of them have a lock on them.
Okay.
It's just, it only turns one way and there's a hole there, you know? And if somebody's gonna turn the water back on again, there's nothing we can do about it.
I was gonna say, I know my meter in my house does not
That
have
would be-
a locking mechanism. I'm
That would-
current though.
If they break the lock off, that's defacing city property.
Yeah. I don't know what it's going to do. We're still paying for their garbage. You know,
Well,
you don't
can't
wanna
we
take
pull
the, you don't wanna take the can away, then what happens to it?
Well, they
Public
take it to the
shaming.
park and they put it in that can.
Yeah.
That's what
Some
they
of-
do already now.
Post
Yeah.
their names up everywhere.
So it's just the next step in that, part of that,
Baby steps.
yes. And we've been through it and been very kind about it, I think. And we still are. We're just asking.
Well, I will say this too, after going through a lot of the ordinances that are in this city, especially on the historic nature, that this process that we're talking about is extremely kind
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
against what the actual ordinance tells us to do. So.
We're not
this is-
dropping the hammer.
This is very lenient.
And I think the last thing on our list tonight, not meaning your last, Donham, but that would be clerk's report. And there's a lot of information here that I'm not sure we're gonna get through, and a lot of this may have to wait till next week, or Wednesday. But feel free to start.
So we've continued to work on the budget for 2023. We'll do our best to give you the information that you need to adjust the budget and to deal with the deficits. Anything that you feel like you need, let me know and we'll try to pull it up. None of the requested transfers were made into the projected budget for 2022. So those have now been made, along with the requested transfers that you made in December for the 2023 budget. It made a huge difference. Those proposed numbers were in there, but they were never transferred to the funds in the system. We want to remind you that all the corrections made to Springbrook, along with reconciling every month with past bank statements, cause the numbers to be quite different from the budget submitted to the state auditor's office. You'll be able to see this by looking at the beginning balances in each of the funds. The LGIP net interest has been prorated and distributed into the general ledger for January through June 2023. The account, of course, at Wheatland Bank has been opened, and we made our first deposit Friday, June 23rd, of $1,000. So we realize that this transfer has to be carefully and thoughtfully done. We're starting by making a list of all ACH and EFTs that exist, so that nothing falls through the cracks. We've been cleaning up bars code errors, adjusting account numbers, and making sure that our general ledger is healthier. We will be doing an assessment of all past adjustments made to utility billing.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yes, thank you.
As always.
So the adjustments, as she was just mentioning, we're trying to work with Springbrook to find out what we can do about that. That's not a simple situation. So,
Understood.
but it's another one that's gotta be attacked and figure out where we're going with it. Since there's no public comments here, anybody from the floor have anything they want to add?
Did you hear anything from the library?
I did talk to the library, sorry, thank you for bringing that
Okay.
up. I talked to Denise tonight and she was planning on being here. She had nothing that she wanted me to send forward, and I'm sure they'll be here next meeting.
I'd move to adjourn.
I'll second.
We got a motion on the floor to adjourn the meeting. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned at 9:34:28.